Now we're talking to Guillaume Lacroix. Thank you, Guillaume, for being here.
You're welcome.
Guillaume is co-founder, CEO, and publishing director of Brut Media. Brut Media is one of the most successful new media ventures. It also happens to be French. I think what we wanted...
Thank you.
This small country,
yeah.
you know.
And recently, Brut Media made a decision to make a major investment in being present in the United States. So in the same way as we were talking a little bit about to Simon, who also is French and has promoted a European institution, I thought it was interesting to speak to Guillaume, who actually wanted to come here and lend his experience and his decision-making relative to going to the United States and how that can also be applied to a nonprofit. Thank you, Guillaume, for being here.
No, you're very welcome. We've launched, so Brut is a publisher. I guess for an American audience, the best analogy would be Vice 20 years ago or something like that. We've decided to launch in the US for many reasons, but one of the first one, and I think it resonates with Aware a lot, is what we found out. I mean, we have 500 million viewers a month across all social platforms, 100 million in the US, I would say already, mostly Gen Z, mostly young people. And what we found out very quickly when we started 6 years ago is, like I would say, there's a set of values for young people that works across the globe. Women and women's rights and women empowerment being a massive one. So the reason why we've decided to go to the US is because we were like kind of lifted by the values. And it was easy for us. We already had like a back catalog of content of women that we could roll out in the US. And the women conversation is probably like 20% of what we do. We try to look at share of voice of social conversation around topics. We lead the social conversation in the world around women on social platform. So that's why we went to the US, because we thought it was easy for us to capitalize on those values. The second step for us was in France, we reach 100% of 15 to 34 every month.
100%?
100%. And we're like a social phenomenon. In India, it's the same for English speaker and Hindi speaker. It's the same in North and Western Africa. So going into the US, we could have tried to have the same type of mainstream influence, but we've chosen differently. We've chosen to go after key opinion leaders and to try to establish ourselves as a partner of choice when you have a voice and you want to talk about women, for instance. But you know, one of the biggest issues we find on social platform, and I've heard a lot of negativity on social platform, which I share, but I think it's a great way to promote content, is it's easy to bring awareness to topics, but it's very hard to close the gap between awareness and impact. You know, so you have like thousands or millions of hashtags saying, you know, like fight for women, and then nothing happened.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a big issue. So we went after key opinion leaders saying, look, we can try to close that gap through a lot of things. So very basically what we've done when we went into the US is we had limited resources. We didn't like spend like crazy, especially you can spend a lot there. We established a small representation in New York. And we went after key opinion leaders. So we used smart social data to identify who were the people who actually had a voice besides celebrities and everything. What we've learned with Brut is every year there's a Edelman Trust report from the big American PR firm. And 6 months ago, in partnership with us, they've done a study on Gen Z about climate change. But I think it's interesting for storytelling. The question was, who do you trust when it comes to climate change? 76% of Gen Z across the world say we trust scientists, which is good news. Mm-hmm. And 74% of them said we trust people like us. Wow. Okay, so apply to Aware. I think, and you know, you were mentioning earlier that a lot of unknown artists, like you know, were sold, and people were like super attracted to it. The great thing with those unknown artists is like people can relate to them much more easily than very big famous artists who are already like selling like you know like millions.
So the contrary of what we would anticipate.
Yeah, it's very counterintuitive. But in order to really have impact on a larger audience, the best way is to basically tell the story of someone they can relate to, and tell the story through the eyes of someone they can relate to. And I mean, the echo that we found out in the US was unbelievable. I mean, in 2 years, we're already reaching 1/3 of the US population, like 100 million people a month, and mostly Gen Z and young adults, through those values. So in the case of Aware, I mean, I've been on the website and everything. I'm a bit...
First of all, did you know about Aware?
I've heard about it, because we've doing plenty of works with NGOs and grassroots organizations in many... So Aware popped up. I was not really aware of what it was, but I knew that it was like dealing with art and women and everything. And I think the US actually could be leveraged right now, and has to be leveraged for me, especially given your mission, because plenty of things are going to happen this year. For instance, there's like a strong movement when you look at women in music and entertainment. I think there's never a woman won a Grammy for Best Producer. There's only like 2% of the technical women working and the technical crew working on music which are women. So there's a massive subject right now in the US, which is the underrepresentation of women in the entertainment industry. So Aware could easily fit into that conversation with a more, you said niche earlier. I disagree. I don't think that.
No, I don't believe we're a niche.
Okay,
but
good.
some people think we are a niche, but we're not.
I think when it comes to women and underrepresentation, that's not a niche. It's like it's a very strong and powerful thing. And the other thing is, as a French company, I mean, as a global company, but as it started in France, the US is a great way to create a very virtuous loop, because as soon as you can find, and I think it would be, I mean, it would require some work on your side and to be on the field meeting people, but like as soon as you are able to connect with strong voices, the type of impact you have is unbelievable. And I'm sure there'll be, especially among young creators, when I say creators, like people publishing content on social platform, a lot of people are going to be super interested in promoting that because they think it's the right thing to do. When it comes to Gen Z and young adult, I mean, if you try to joke about women condition with someone who's 16 or 17 years old, try to see if they have a sense of humor on those. No, not at all. Like it's a very strong question for them. So, I think some of them, I'm going to make a bad analogy, but this year we partnered with the Cannes Film Festival. We have the official media partner. And Cannes came to us because they were basically saying, look, no one in the young generation know about us. We are a movie festival. We're aging. Can you bring in Brut and try to reach an audience? And we went there because we knew that the selection of film were very driven by social issues, social conscious and everything. So we knew we could work with that. Most of them are dealing with women. And we brought pretty much 500 million young adults to the festival. People who have never heard of the festival.
Cannes?
Yeah, Cannes.
It's very well known.
So there's a very interesting fact. And we worked with the Reuters Institute for that. 6 years ago, the common consumption of media between people over 50 and under 30 years old was 60%. So 60. So 60% of, let's say, young and older people were watching the same type of content. 2 years ago was 7%. Really? So, yeah, 7% only. And so basically you have a world which is, and I guess it's pretty much, it's true everywhere, but like you have a world where you have TV, print, radio, average viewer age 50 to 60. Mm-hmm. And then you have a world which is social media, basically, where you have people under 35. And most of the people we've polled and we've studied for Cannes, around 18 years old, they never heard of Cannes. They had no idea what it was. But once again, when you leverage values, people are ready to do it. And one of the ways we've done it is we invited key opinion leaders in Cannes. Not to say, let's promote the festival, but to say, look, the festival is making a selection of movies, a curation of movies, which are like very strong about women, or about some other things, sustainability, for instance. You know what? Come to Cannes, Yes, you're going to walk the red carpet, of course, but we're going to introduce you to the writer, to the director, to the crew, to the staff, to the team, and the casting. You're going to understand why they are doing those movies, what they are trying to say. Artists are at the forefront of change all the time. And, we don't ask you to post anything, just come. So we invited, like a lot of them, we invited 180 of them, Indians, Americans, South American, African, like from all across the globe. No obligation of posting. They came, they made the people, and they posted like crazy for two reasons. First of all, they are creators, so when they are somewhere, they create and they post. So give them opportunity to do so. And the second thing was they felt, and I think it's very relevant to Aware, they felt it was the right thing to do.
But you invited them, you paid for the trip, or Can did that. So that's a huge amount of money.
Yeah. Yeah, but like you don't...
Which we don't have. So
yeah,
how
but
can we...
it was I was in the... Cannes asked us to do that. So we had a budget from Cannes to do it. Yeah. But in your case, you just need to, if you're in the US, you just need to meet people. When you bring them context about something that they feel is super unfair, they will react and they will act, like massively. And I think that in the case of Aware, what you are bringing to them is a body of work where you can say, look, that's unfair. Like, you don't know about it, so you can get educated. Plus, that's super unfair.
So you mean like if we address Camille's issue, the cost of putting together these opinion leaders who would make a difference, it's something that we could have done at Frieze, for instance.
Yes.
There was Frieze Art Fair at Spotlight. We could have come up with a list of opinion leaders and we've tried to, but then you have to have the structure.
In the US, for instance, there's a woman named Lisa Koshy. Lisa is one of the biggest influencer or creator in the US. She probably has a following of 80 to 90 million people in the US. If you tell her, look, there's right now in the art world, there's a strong conversation about women, about the representation of women. We would love to have you there because you're truly an artist too. Even though you don't know a lot about the art world, would you like to discover and be part of that discussion? She would come in a minute. Apart, for me, there's influencers and creators. Influencers are like, what am I eating, all those stuff. Yeah. Creators are people who actually want to create something on social media, and they become very, very good at it. Yeah. And those people are very close to the art world. And actually, what's happening right now, that's why Brut is becoming the official media partner of Paris Plus. We're talking about Basel in Miami, and we want to go into the art world more, is because I'm certain that within the next 2 years, there's going to be a blend between young creators on social platform and young artists, because young creators are becoming more and more creative and more visual, and artists need a platform to better express their vision, and it's going to cross.
So am I hearing that there's a potential of Brut entering into a partnership with Aware?
Yeah, sure, of course, yeah. We're partnering with our job at Brut, our mission. We are a B Corp company. Our mission is to really amplify voices, okay, in a non-partisan way. Brut is not going to say that's good, that's not good, but because
they don't like that either.
But we're going to curate people, change maker, and everything. And to come back to our early point, you don't need to have a big celebrity. You need to have someone who's actually doing something about it, and that young people can relate to, and it works incredibly.
What about, we haven't yet heard from people like Candy Barash, who's going to be talking. So you have major collectors who I think would be interested in talking about the fact that Aware is important. Wouldn't that count as well or not?
I think when it comes to social, of course, yes, every support is great, but what needs to be demonstrated is action. Like, on social platform, when you say, look, this is great, it doesn't do much.
I see.
But if you're like, look, that's the story of a young artist in Frieze, who's in conversation with a panel of 4 to 5 young creators, and it's and this conversation has been sparked by Aware. All of a sudden, you're like, oh, okay, I can relate to that, I understand. But if someone is telling me, look, this is great, and by the way, women are important, yes, we know.
Yeah.
And I want to go back to what you said at first and talking about Frieze and something I said which was not completely exact. So we chose unknown women artists, and the reason people were buying them, and this is what they told me, the buyers, they said, we are buying not because they're known, because it's visually strong, and both because you curated the section, because they trusted us as a collective, our vision. And they said, whatever you've been choosing is right. So we're buying sort of not blindly, but because it was curated, because we were sort of out advisors, and they trusted our vision. And this group of super rich people were like, oh, okay, we're buying. Didn't give any money to Aware, but buying whatever we chose to show.
Tell us a little bit about the viewpoint of, do you feel that the French, like we heard Simon, who was rather negative about all the administration and costs of coming into the United States. Can you say something about that? Because obviously that's not what Aware has.
It's, I don't think you need, I mean, if you want to set up an entity, there's a cost, but it's not an incredible cost. And I'm sure Aware can find resources to pay for it. And then the first part of the work is really human relationship. I mean, and with the, I mean, I know nothing about art, but like with the people I've been introduced to in the room right now, I'm sure you can put a list of people, like maybe 40 people that you absolutely want to target in 6 months, and make sure they are exposed to Aware, and it will go. You know, if you want awareness, you can just bring people on board, and you will have plenty of awareness. Mm-hmm. But you need to understand why you're doing it. And in the case of Aware, I think that there's a group of people that can be targeted in the US, for instance, for free, you know, and would be super happy to do it. I mean, not on the creator side, but like I think people like Hello Sunshine, for instance, and Reese Witherspoon, we're working with them right now. They would be super interested in I mean, that's what they do. When you try to establish a content library, I think once again, it really needs to go back to what do you want to achieve. So if you want to achieve, in the US at least, influence, it's better to focus on meeting the top 50 people you need to meet in the US than really doing a YouTube channel. Because the time the YouTube channel is going to take to pick up, you know, it's a lot. But you have already a cool library of content, you have a website, that's great. But more importantly, I would say the first 6 months is like, okay, how do I meet the top 20, 30, 50 people who are key opinion leaders for what you want to do, that can make this resonate? How can I hack positively an event like Freeze or Basel or whatever to make sure, for instance, Basel, I'm sure that you can say to 5 to 10 creators, the right one, we'll be super happy to invite you, in Basel for 2 days and be part of the conversation about women in art. They will come in a second. And all of a sudden, you're starting to gain influence. What we do at Brut, every time we go into a country, we use what we call smart social data. It's kind of technical, but we dig deep into data so we can see who are the opinion leader of social conversation, depending on the topics. So for instance, we will look at women, and we say, okay, those 50 people, you have maybe never heard of them, okay? But those 50 people are the people influencing the conversation in that country about that topic. So my job as a publisher is like, okay, I have a year to make sure that I'm meeting every single one of them, and I'm going to, start working with them, profiling them, telling their stories, partnering on some type of content we can do together. And all of a sudden, after a year, you go into, or 6 months, and I think it would be great for Aware, is my PR in the US told me what's the best headline you could get in 6 months from now. And I told them, look, the best headline I can have is like, meet the publisher you haven't heard of, but who's already the best partner for creators, celebrities when it comes to closing the gap between awareness and impact. You don't need to have like mainstream influence yet, but you need to make sure that the right people who are hardcore to the cause know you've been sitting with them, they've seen your work and everything, and they will advocate for you for free, because they think it's fair.
Okay, thank you very much, Guillaume.
You're welcome.
Great idea. We will count on you in the future.
You can. It's super interesting for us.
Okay, fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for
You're very
coming.
welcome.